My dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, as we are getting near to meet that resurrected Lord, and today let's meditate on the 11th station, that is, Jesus is nailed to the cross. Now let's listen to the Gospel reading. The Holy Gospel according to St. Luke chapter 23, verses from 35 to 43. And the people stood by watching, but the leaders scoffed at him, saying, "He saved others, let him save himself, if he is a Messiah of God, his chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine and saying, "If you are the King of Jews, save yourself." There was also an inscription over him, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who were hanged there kept deriding him and saying, "Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed have been condemned justly, for we are getting what we deserve for our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." He replied, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." My dear brothers and sisters in Christ Jesus, as we have just heard this Gospel reading, where the total surrender of Jesus he gave to that human. Sometimes I won't understand how God willingly, joyfully surrendered himself to the human beings. And if you see from the beginning, where Mother Mary surrendered to God and accepted the will of God, and in her fiat she accepted the grace of God to bear a son, Jesus. And if you see now Jesus surrendering himself to this humanity, Jesus died for each one of us, for you and for me, and he died for those who were hanging him, who were persecuting him, who were giving him the troubles and trials and difficulties. Jesus never takes revenge on those who suffers him much in his life, but rather he died for them too. And Jesus gives us the very example to die for oneself and to die for others, to die for oneself in our sufferings and pains, and to die for others, giving up our life and accepting the will of God and accepting the mission of God in our life. And if you see that if we surrender ourselves to God, God will never abandon us. And we see in the Romans chapter 8, where St. Paul says that, "For I am convinced that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor rulers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus our Lord." Nothing will separate us from the love of Christ. But if we hold on to Jesus and surrender our hearts to him, our mind to him, our soul to him, then there is nothing in this world that can separate us from the love of Christ and remaining with him. My dear brothers and sisters, as we are commemorating the Holy Thursday, as we are in the Holy Week, and today Jesus institutes the four, that is, instituting the Eucharist, instituting the priesthood, and instituting the commandment of love, and the fourth, washing of the feet. And Jesus gives us a very example of dying for the others, loving others for Jesus' sake, and cleansing our hearts in loving others. My dear brothers, as we are in a Holy Week and intensifying to meet him, and very few hours to meet him, and if Jesus comes to your heart, standing in front of your heart, Jesus asks each one of us a question, that are you ready to take me into your heart? If our heart is very in bad condition or with all mischief, and if we are not able to welcome that Jesus, then Jesus will never enter into our hearts. So let's ask Jesus to give us the grace to surrender our hearts in this Holy Week, in the journey towards to meet Him, and ask Jesus that grace to give our hearts to Him, so that He may enter our hearts. Where Jesus dwells, there is a heaven. And let's also take the inspiration from this station to surrender to this humanity, to die for this humanity, and to die for Jesus. Amen.